Hello everyone, welcome to the editorial analysis of the Shankar IAS Academy, brought to you by the Civil Media team. And this is Apniya Sampath for today's editorial analysis of the current affairs for the date 23 of December 2024. And for today, my health conditions are a bit not strong, so I sincerely apologize for the aspirants if there is any disturbances in the video. So now let us move on to the articles discussion one by one. First, the topics for today's discussion are from two editorial from the Indian Express and the Hindu. First one is titled The Currency Matters from the Indian Express, which talks about the depreciation of our Indian rupee in comparing with the US dollars. Next article would be the title The Global Warming Fight and Challenges Associated with India. From the Hindu, talks about the role of climate change for a country like India to achieve its net zero emission target by 2070. So for a country like China, net zero emission target is for the year 2060, and for a country like US, the net zero emission target is for a year of 2050. So when comparing 2070 of India, we would be seeing what are the challenges and impact associated with it. So without any much further delay, let's get into the articles discussion one by one. Moving on to the first article for today, the article titled The Global Warming Fight as a Challenge for India, where this article discusses how highlights how challenges are there when it comes to attaining the 2070 goal of net zero emission. So when it comes in achieving this target, challenges like the need for the rising power demand and at the same time the need for the fossil fuels, which is very contradictory in nature, and at the same time having the need for transitioning to the clean energy sector with the impact of high costs stand as a challenge, and we will be seeing the challenges in the fewer slides and how these challenges are supported by other global pressures such as the EU's role and at the same time the CBAM, that is the Carbon Border Adjustment Management tax. And so in order to achieve these goals, the need of financial investment and the same time bringing in the green financing and also the need of having international corporations stand as a balance when it comes to achieving the climate change goals, and at the same time it makes the countries to be more responsible and accountability when it comes to challenges of climate change. So in light of this article, let us see a mains question and a framework to it, and we'll be seeing further basics in upcoming slides. So this is the question, and I want the students to kindly put in their mains practice answer in the comment section. Now let us see what is climate change. Look into the keywords. It is a long-term alteration in temperature, precipitation, wind pattern and other climate system elements of the earth. So here temperature can be understood as the rising and warming of temperature, precipitation can be the rainfall pattern and other wind patterns, and at the same time other climatic conditions. It leads to a long-term or long-lasting effect in climate change. Now looking into the major causes of climate change, first is the burning of the fossil fuels. Here almost 75% of the global carbon dioxide is emitted by burning of the fossil fuels. It not only leads to the global warming, but at the same time it leads to the increase of greenhouse gas effect. Next would be deforestation. Here almost 10 to 15% of the global greenhouse gas emissions are done by due to the deforestation, which acts as a very important root cause when it comes to climate change. So not only in bringing in climate increasing the temperature, they also have bring in a destruction of the biodiversity present. Next one would be the industrial activities. Here gases such as carbon dioxide, methane, nitrous oxide stand as emissions from products such as cement, steels, chemical manufacturing and other waste manufacturing productions and so on. So to tackle this, the CBAM has been introduced. Now next is the agriculture and livestock, methane, livestock emissions, where methane from the livestock and nitrous oxide from the fertilizers stand as a major cause when it comes to climate change. Here in order to improve the crop yields, of course we have taken in the need of having chemical fertilizers and so on. So for the economic improvement, of course there is environmental degradation. So in my before editorial video, I would have taken an article where due to the global crisis, how 5 factors which involves climate change has been discussed. So that video can also be seen as a reference point. Here emission from the livestock, which is the methane, is almost 25 times higher powerful than CO2 in trapping the heat. Now when it comes to the last factor, which is the waste management and landfills, here almost 3 to 5% of the greenhouse gas emissions are by this factor. So now to just have a basic understanding, let us see what is greenhouse gas. So greenhouse gas are those a group of compounds which are released due to the burning of the fossil fuels, burning of these factors and so on, which are majorly from the fossil fuels. So these compounds will be trapping the heat in the present in the Earth's atmosphere. So after burning of these fossil fuels, the greenhouse gases would be reaching the Earth's surface and it would be trapping the sun's heat. So when there is incoming solar radiation on the Earth, there will be some solar energy which would be bouncing back from the Earth. So due to the presence of these greenhouse gases, the heat would be trapped in the Earth's surface, which would be first and foremost affecting the biosphere, and for example it leads to the ocean acidification. So here the primary greenhouse gases would be water vapor, that is the H2O, next would be the carbon dioxide, next would be the methane, next would be the nitrous oxide, and next would be the ozone. So these greenhouse gases will be ultimately impacting on bringing the greenhouse gases effect. So these are the basics when it comes to the climate change and the emission of greenhouse gases. So now let us look into India's commitment when it comes to net zero pledge. So net zero is nothing but it refers to the amount of greenhouse gases which should be balanced with the amount of outgoing and at the same time the amount of incoming. That is, it is a balance between the greenhouse emissions which are produced, that is the outgoing, with the removed one, that is the due to other activities such as carbon sequestration and so on. So this pledge was made in the Conference of Parties of 26 in Glasgow in the year 2021. So you all know the Conference of Parties would be happening in the UNFCCC. So in order to attain this agreement, first India has intermediate targets which need to be attained by 2030. Here their first goal is to reduce emissions intensity by 45% compared to 2005. Here India is the third largest economy, and when it comes to greenhouse gas effect, India is the fifth largest economy. So from 1990 to 2005 almost there was 65% increase in the greenhouse gas effect. So comparing to 2005, the target would be to reduce 45% in it. Next one would be increasing the energy capacity of non-fossil fuel of 500 gigawatt. Next target would be having 50% energy increase from the renewables, thus involving the clean energy sector. And next target would be having 1 billion ton reduction in the projected carbon emissions. So as I have told overline about the challenges in achieving the net zero, first as I told, the rising energy demand. So here in transitioning sectors like the transportation and the clean energy, and industry to clean energy, it needs the amount of power supply in demand. So the increase of industrialization, urbanization and involvement of AI stands as a great challenge when it comes to increasing the or addressing the energy demand. Next one would be the having economic pressures, as I told before, the CBAM and the fiscal position of India, such as the green financing and power distributing companies such as the DISCOM stand as a challenge. And next is climate financing, where there is a need for almost 1 billion trillion by 2030 to achieve almost the intermediate targets in itself. So now let us see the few steps taken towards the net zero emission target. First is promoting renewable energy such as solar, wind, hydropower, such as the ISA, that is the International Solar Alliance. Next is bringing in energy efficiency through schemes like the Perform, Achieve and Trade scheme. Next, there are other schemes such as Coalition for Disaster Resilience Infrastructure when it comes to carbon sequestration. Next is the need of afforestation, such as they act as carbon sinks. Next is bringing in the invention of electric vehicle, that is electric mobility, EVs, through the scheme called FAME 2. and bringing in the scheme of National Hydrogen Mission, where hydrogen stands as a alternative when it comes to energy source. So the issue of climate change is not just a recent improvement or involvement. It has a lot of history. For example, the first climate change protest would be by the US when it comes to the creation of Clean Air, Clean Water and Endangered Species Act by the US. Next would be by having protest in Alaska, where there were protests against the nuclear energy, and at the same time the famous Chipko movement by India, where there is protest for when it comes to deforestation. So these are just very few examples when it comes to having a historical context of climate change. So April 22 is seen as the birth of Earth in 1970 due to this movement in US, and in Alaska the movement is called as Greenpeace. So these movements, it's not just happening in the recent years, but it's an ancient problem for all of the human generation. So I hope this article is clear. And now let us move on to the next article. Now let us move on to the last article. The article titled Currency Matters discusses about the depreciation of the Indian rupee against the value of the US dollars. So the article highlights that it's not the weakness of the Indian rupee, but it is more stronger or having strength of the US dollar against our Indian rupees. So in order to tackle this problem, the article suggests the RBI to take in the policy of macroeconomic stability. Here it is nothing but a country where the economic stability operates smoothly on low volatility, having sustainable development, and at the same time having minimal economic inflation. So here low volatility is nothing but the degree of variation or fluctuation of the value of money. So how much ever the low volatility is less, it will help for having a macroeconomic stability in a country. So the article also suggests that more than having macroeconomic stability is important, rather than the RBI defending the Indian rupee using the interest rates. So in light of this article, let us see a mains question and a framework associated with it. This is a question: the depreciation of the Indian rupee poses significant challenges for the economic stability. Discuss the causes, impact and the measures taken by the RBI to address this issue while ensuring macroeconomic stability. I also want the students to kindly put their mains practice question in the comment section for this answer, and now we will be seeing a framework for it. First, let us see the meaning of depreciation. Depreciation is nothing but the decline in the value of the Indian rupee, which is relative to other countries' rupee amount, especially the US dollars. So this term depreciation means there is a need to have more rupees which are required to buy the foreign currency, thus making the imports to be more costlier, and it can impact the economy. So the US dollar is seen as the world's primary reserve currency due to its economic domination, economic impact, and the same time US political power, and also how the US dollar is one of the most widespread accepted US or the amount, which is mainly known or called as dollarization. So I hope now there's a clear understanding of what depreciation is. Now let us see few impacts of the rupee depreciation. First is the higher import costs. Here products like oil or electronics become higher in its cost, and it increases to its inflation. Next one would be widening of the trade deficit. Here the import costs are more, making the trade gaps to be increased. Next is costlier foreign debt. Here loan repayments in foreign countries will be becoming more expensive in nature. Next one would be increased inflation. Higher import costs would lead to rising of the prices of the goods and services eventually. The next impact would be reduced investor confidence. Here the financial investors for a country like India are very much important, and the finance which comes from it. Thus when foreign investors withdraw their funds, it causes the capital outflows, but there isn't any capital inflow. Now next is the pressure on the forex reserve. See, for example, reserves is seen as a buffer amount whenever there is an economic instability. When there is pressure on those forex reserves in itself, as the RBI uses the reserves to stabilize the rupee, it reduces its buffer period altogether. Next is the impact on the exports. Here the exports become cheaper, thus limiting the benefits, and it increases the import costs. Next is having higher fuel prices, which is very common. The fuel prices rise due to the increase in the crude oil imports. And next one ultimately will be the economic slowdown. Here, because of the depreciation, it leads to persistent inflation, and it ultimately leads down to the economic slowdown. Now let us see few measures taken by RBI to address the rupee depreciation. First is the forex market intervention. So the RBI here uses its US dollar to be sold from its reserves to reduce the volatility of our Indian rupee. Next one would be the monetary policy adjustment. Here it increases the interest rates or the repo rates to attract few investments and curb inflation. Next one would be encouraging the FDI and FPI. Here it encourages the foreign direct investment and promotes the foreign portfolio investments, that is the FPI, which both stands as the long term capitals. Next is the swap agreement. Here it engages in the bilateral currency swapping between two countries or their banks to stabilize the forex reserves in nature. Next one would be regulating external borrowings. It monitors and adjusts the external for borrowings by the RBI, such as external commercial borrowings, to manage the foreign fund inflows. Next one would be monitoring speculation. Here it tries to prevent the speculative pressure on the forex reserves, thus the value of the Indian rupee can be monitored. Speculative is nothing but having a bit doubtful on the forex markets. Next one would be promoting export competitiveness. To reduce the import dependency, there is promoting of the export competitiveness. For example, promoting the export sectors, thus to have a trade balance. And finally is to have an improving forex reserves. So to have a very strong and strengthful forex reserves, thus to face any extreme economic conditions, we can have a strong reserve buffer. So I hope the article is very clear. Since it's economy in nature, it can be a bit tough to understand. So I request the students to keep on watching the video, as I have told it to be bit more simpler in nature. And if you have any doubts on the keywords and so on, I recommend the students to look for the meaning of few keywords. As I have explained in whatever way I could, I want the students to understand this article in its conceptual nature first, and then move on to knowing its keywords when it comes to economy. Thank you so much for watching this video. I hope you are at the end of this video. Don't forget to give a like, comment and a share, and to further not to miss any other content, subscribe to our channel. Thank you and have a great day.